Why would I cut back a young bonsai this hard? And on another tree, leave everything. Because pruning a bonsai is not about making them look neat. Every cut needs a purpose. I've got 24 trees today and I'm going to go through each and every one of them. I show you where I cut, why I cut, and more importantly, what I want to achieve. Some will need heavy pruning, some will need some wire, some will need some repotting, and some I will leave alone. Let's get started. I typically use scrap wire, but they're perfectly fine to still use on your material. I've got cut paste, wire clipper, using a concave cutter, regular pruning shears, not to forget knob cutters, small azaleas. These were taken in early spring, seems to be doing well, just one that has died. I'm just going to remove the dead ones and then be done with it. And with this gone, I can just put it aside. This is a tiny Japanese maple. The roots are coming out at the bottom of the pot. Not going to do anything to the roots. There's no slugs on there. Few choices. There are small branches here on the side. I could cut back to this and say I'm going to make a nice short tree, or I could say I'm going to let this extend for a little bit and then in a year or two I'm going to cut this off. Now the latter is I think what I'm going to do. I'm not going to prune all that much. For now this can just extend. I'm going to remove some of these side branches so that this lower branch stays nice and viable. So this top I'm going to leave on as a sacrifice, and this is going to be my future bonsai, but it needs to fatten up a little bit. Maybe in spring I can put it in a bigger pot. An elm. This elm is a cork-bark variety. You see the nice rough swelling here. The top has broken. Let's get rid of that. And in fact, it's not bringing me all that much. I'm just going to cut back here to this little side branch. And here at the base I have quite a few branches, but I don't want all of them to stay on. And this one small branch here at the base can now work as a sacrifice, fattening this up. And then I'm going to take a little bit of wire to lift this up a little bit more. Sliding this into the pot. Just like that. Now this is nice and stable. Hold it at the base and fold it around the branch. I'm holding the branch and the wire to really make sure the wire bends around the branch. I want this to have a natural direction. Here there's a little side branch. We can use that to also here make a directional change in the branch. Then I want it to come forward, go backwards, so we get three-dimensional movement in this whole plant. Tricky question. Do you like this kind of videos? Let me know below in the comments. Here is another of these cork-bark elms. This is a little bit older. You see similarly here I've already created movement in this lower trunk. So we've got the same basic setup. The question now of course is, how am I going to further develop this? You see a few things. There's some heavy branches here at the bottom. They will aid in fattening up this lower trunk. You can actually see the transition here. Then this whip at the top. If I let this grow out, then the whole trunk from top to bottom will fatten up. It's actually not what I'm after. I much rather have this lower trunk developing. The alternative is to just let the whole thing grow and cut it off low and let a side branch develop. In this case I don't want to. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go all the way back. I'm going to say I'm going to remove the top here. Here also this is a long branch that I don't want. This is just there for future development. So I'm removing terminal buds on all these branches. Now these branches are all nice and small except for this one. The tree doesn't just move side to side, it's also backwards and forwards. So in all directions there is movement. This is important when you're developing young stock and you can still control it. This is much thinner than this. And that's due to this sacrifice branch here. With this is pretty much done. Cork-bark oak. Just remove a little bit of weed. Nothing spectacular happening here. This is standing in too dark a spot. It needs more sun. So I need to move this to a different location. Can keep it in this tray, but needs to sit on the sunny side. Azalea, just like the other ones, nothing needs to be done, just needs to grow. This is very, very young. This is only, I think, 6 months since rooting. Just thought I'd give you a peek here of this growing tray. Look at what's happening here. This is all sits in the water, and that really aids in developing the sacrifice branch that sits here on top. When you look at that, it has grown enormously. Doing really, really well, and that is because these roots have access to water. But it can't stay like this because the roots will just grow and grow and grow. It actually needs a bigger pot. Normally I'd say don't repot without a lot of root work, but in this case I think it is worth my while to move this. This is a crepe myrtle, and crepe myrtle are really, really hardy. They really like the heat and they have really strong root growth. So I'm actually going to take this out of the pot now and repot it in a slightly larger pot. And yes, that means I'm going to have to cut quite a few of these roots. But before we do, let's look at this. So it has this very long growth here, right? But in reality, most likely is that I'll use this as my final tree. So I'm going to put a little bit of wire on there to have a little bit of movement. Basically, I'm just putting the wire over the junction. Just hitting the bottom there of this little V gap. Then I'll go up on the heavier one for 2 loops around the main trunk. And this gives me a very nice, secure base to work from. It's a little bit awkward with this long sacrifice here. And now I need to decide, well, if I plant this up later like this, I of course want this to bend with this branch on the outside. A little bit back, a little bit forward. And I just gently put in small bends. So what will happen later is that I'll cut this one off. And then this becomes my main tree. We look at that. Now, as always, I don't want intertangled roots, so I'm going to cut the lowest shiver of the ball. This will stop circling roots here from further developing. I'm opening it up a little bit. Now I'm assuming that the base is okay because I have done root work on this before, so I'm not going to cut any more roots. I've got a pot that is slightly bigger, right here. So this is what I'm going to plant it in. This is a perfect match. Pot it up, watered down, ready to go for another couple of months. This is just a regular Chinese elm. I actually don't really like this tree, but it needs a lot of work. This is what you typically expect in your garden and you don't know what to do with, right? So let's go in detail what I do with this tree. For this Chinese elm, one of the first considerations is of course, how big should this tree be? Now it has a fairly thin trunk, so there's 2 options. You plant it out and you grow it really, really fat. Or you say, no, this is what I'm going to work with. I think the latter is the case here. These long whips, I'm not going to keep. I want the lower branches to develop. I'm not going to push for more top growth. So let's just get rid of this. So what we see here, there's a gentle movement. And I said this could be a first branch, so I should actually keep it like this. The first branch with some more branches. And then here in the top, a lot of messy things are happening. Now what I could do is decide, I'm going to lose this whole top. And here there is a bit of a thicker branch with a side branch there. Let me just remove some of these small branches here so you can better see what I'm talking about. Now a lot of the cluster of branches is gone. I'm going to remove some more here. Actually I'm going to remove this one as well, that one as well. And now what you see is what I've created is, this is a new leader. This is no longer needed. A side branch, side branch, side branch, side branch, side branch, side branch, another branch. So this now could become my new tree. Not going to do anything else except for, I don't want this to strengthen, that to explode with growth. This can grow, this shouldn't grow all that tall. Now I have got a small tree again. I could, of course, wire this up a little bit and then it is ready to grow again for the rest of the season. Notophagous, a cutting I grew last year. It's quite weak. I think slugs have been on it and it just needs more sun and it needs a better spot. I'm not going to do anything at this stage because it's still not happy and healthy. It did grow this year, but because all this foliage has been eaten, I'm a little bit concerned about wiring it out. Normally, if it was healthy and strong, I would have slapped the wire on. This one is from the same batch and it has grown a lot better. And this is actually a slug on my hand. So the slugs are there. There's another slug here. Poof. Wire into the soil. Make sure it is nice and stable and gently loop it around the branch, trying to not break off anything. And then here ultra light wiring, because it is still a very young, very pliable young whip. So don't overdo it. And then just a few curves in there to get some movement. Don't overcomplicate matters. Japanese quinces, and they create small red flowers. They are still perfectly fine in their pot. There's another little slug. That's the downside of keeping your small plants nice and humid. This was wired out last spring. The wire is not biting in anywhere. I've got lots and lots of side branches pushing the further development. I'm actually not going to do anything, just kind of put this aside. And this one, it's a small cutting that I took in spring, seems to be growing well. I'm going to leave this alone. I'm going to actually just let this grow for a little bit. And similarly for this Japanese maple that's in here, not had a lot of sun. It needs more sun, needs a bit more space. But I don't need to do anything except for also remove the little slug that sits at the bottom. Slugfest here. Not sure what that is, what it means. Look at these roots. This is impossible. So basically what's happening, this plant is growing, pushes roots out of the bottom, finds a little bit of moisture, pushes more roots, and the pot is being pushed up and up and up and up. And all the time when the pot goes up, the edges dry out. So these roots dry out again, except for the ones that are underneath it. And now you've got this whole mat of roots underneath here. Now I'm going to first of all remove that mat. Then I need to decide, do I actually want to do something with it? You see this shape? There's an interesting little curve, which as the tree grows out over time will become less distinct. So this is not the final form, it's going to get much bigger. If I want this to get much bigger, I also need to let it grow much bigger. It goes into a bigger pot. Same story as before, right? Remove the roots. I did fertilize all my trees yesterday, so all of these have been soaking in fertilizer for the night. So they should be nice and strong and healthy and happy to go. I've prepared a pot with coarse substrate, and not just one pot, not 2 pots, 3 pots. Why? Well, because I've got this one, which is now nice and open, the root ball, that goes into this one. But I've looked further in the tray, there we go. And guess what? That's 3 crepe myrtles with roots extending through the pot. 1, 2, and that is 3. I do hope that this will now settle into the pots quite well. And once they do continue growing, it does mean that I have to protect it a little bit against extreme heat, wind, and yeah, against tumbling over. So I have to be a little bit careful with these. But I'm just going to let these grow. In the end, this is pretty much the tree. Everything else is just going to be cut off. But it can go on for a little bit, and I might pop them in a really big container or in the full ground for a few years to really get nice girth on there. But they do really well in these pots. I'm quite pleased. Final 8. 2 of those are cork oaks. This one is doing really well. You can see that this will be eventually my tree. It's got a nice little bit of movement down low and then gentle swirl. So this just gets to extend. Nothing to be done. This one I'm also just letting grow out. But what you see here is a 3-way junction, and I don't want a 3-way junction. The question is then, of course, what am I going to keep and what not? Well, this is a very long side whip, which is not a trunk line continuation. This is a nice continuation if I want a little bit of a curve, or this is it for a normal formal upright. So let's just remove this long whip. There's a dead branch, there's another dead branch. Here, there's another 3-way split. There's no growing tip here, so I'm just going to move here to the next growing tip. And I'm not going to wire it out. This I'm just going to develop. And why? Not because I don't want movement, but because I've got 6 more in pots that are wired out with a lot of movement. So these are just basically spare ones to see how they develop over time. I'm just going to let this grow for another year or 2, and then I'm going to clip it down low and develop this. What else do we have here? That's a kaki. That's a kaki. That's not a kaki. Look at the roots, you know what that is, right? Crepe myrtle. That's a kaki. Yeah, also kaki. And guess what this might be? Indeed, kaki. All of these were grown from seed a few years ago. I think 3 years now. From one of my large kaki plants. And there's slugs everywhere, tiny little slugs. I keep finding them at the bottom of the pot, also in this tray. Need to throw all of these away. What am I going to do with all these kakis? Well, of course I'm going to weed them. A little cotoneaster coming up. And here also I've got different approaches to these kakis. This one has been wired, and this one has been wired to get nice undulating shapes in there, and this I've just allowed to grow and extend. Now this is going to be a fairly straight, formal, upgoing tree. This I'm going to allow to extend. This will be my future top with nice little side branches. So if I prune it later on here, then that's going to be my tree. But for now, this is allowed to extend. Let's remove some of these leaves to reduce the shading on all the other plants in the pot. And this can then just extend. All the other branches, I don't really want this to start shooting now. I just want them to stay alive for the time being. But this is pretty much all that I'm doing at this stage. This is my tree. The wire should be no longer needed, so let's just remove the wire and just gently unwinding. You see the tree will hold its shape, but it might move back a little bit, but that's okay. That gives the tree a more natural shape. What you'll see is that there's a nice heavy branch going here sideways, but then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 branches coming together. I don't want that. Now this is a branch going up straight, whereas this is nice movement, so I don't want this to compete with the main trunk line. Then I still have 2 branches here, and to be honest, both of them are competing with this lower branch. Just like that. Going up, this is all pretty much okay. This could be a sacrifice branch to fatten up and keep this as a little trunk line. So this one is also done. Similarly here, is there anything happening here that I don't want to happen? Well, there's a little bit of a competition here. Everything else seems to be okay. So this can just go and grow. This one also wired. Look at those heavy roots coming out. You also see these big escape branches coming up. Really, really good. So again, gentle unwiring of these branches. Again, I don't want the inner shade. In bonsai we grow trees, we grow a lot of biomass that is eventually going to be cut off, just to develop a nice, interesting, strong base for the tree. Eventually it might be planted something like this. No competing branches, ready to go. Yeah, only small little competing branches here at the base. I'm going to remove the upper one of the 2 from this angle. There we go. And the rest, they're all individual branches. Now this one I've not wired out, but it's quite long. I could in fact wire it out. And in that way have another one that is a little bit more interesting trunk shape. It looks like very heavy bends, but as it thickens up, it looks much better. Last but not least, crepe myrtle. And a crepe myrtle with 2 clear characteristics. It's got a slug that's salted, and all these roots here. Now this is still quite small and it doesn't really warrant a midsummer repot with rootwork. Don't want to take that risk, and it's not needed, but I do want to remove everything that grows from the bottom to make sure that most of the root ball stays on the inside. I would not do this with a pine or a juniper in the middle of summer, although I might actually. But this container, it does have holes, but it doesn't drain completely, so water accumulates, which is really nice for the slugs, but also for the trees. Let's remove any remaining slugs. All right, will you look at that? That's a big one. I'm going to throw that away, and then it's a matter of filling it back up. So the strong ones go in the back, and the weaker ones go in the front. And after the prune back, this is what it all looks like. Right, I think with that I'm just going to water it, put it back in the sun, leave you with that. If you want to know more about pruning these, I've got another video pruning this whole tray, but then last year. That's this one. And of course, figuring out how to not make mistakes when growing from seed or cutting. That might be an interesting video, especially if you're just beginning and trying to figure out how this works. Before you leave, don't forget to like this video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of this, and with that I'll wish you a nice weekend. See you next time.